Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 11 of Uncanny X-Men from the Ashes, which is part 1 of the X-Manhunt event, written by Gail Simone and art by Andre Bresson. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. So with that said, this issue opens in space in an orbiting station above the planet Leo. And when we get there, we get a narration from the Journal of Charles, and it goes as follows: lifeless space, time passes slowly where there is only emptiness. Measured in not the lives of potentates or the great works of art or industry, but in the building of mountains and the shifting of great oceanic spans. Here for the first time since creation, language is heard. So with that out there, on board the vessel a voice said, approaching a vessel sending urgent mayday. Its shields are down and it's carrying only minimum power, and its life support appears to be failing. Now with that ship in distress, on the next page, we hop on board the approaching ship to see the commander talking with one of his soldiers, and out of nowhere the man discloses that this whole thing is a trap and he is conducting a mutiny. And a few blaster shots later, the commander was dead, and the man started to hail the secret alliance vessel Rialt and stated, "This is the new commander, Elilon of the Shi'ar escort cruiser Krillerai. You are clear for boarding. All power to the revolution. Welcome aboard, liberators." And just like that, people rushed on board the ship and started to open fire. And as they moved, they navigated their way to the chamber room, only to hear a voice say, "I would not be quite so certain, traitor. You may have taken us by surprise, but the Empress has one guard left. And her name is Death. To reach my niece, foolish children, you'll have to go through me. And that, little traitors, is something you will never accomplish." So as Deathbird stood defiant and ready to cut down all who crossed her path, we then transitioned over to the Graymalkin Prison back on Earth, following the events of the raid on Graymalkin event. And just like before, when we get there, we get yet another narration from Charles's journal saying, "Turn the page to a world teeming with life, where languages are endless and everywhere. And the mountains and oceans exist only as silent witness to our machinations and desperate scrambling for power. And where I am imprisoned." Now as the prison was being repaired, the warden asked for a status update from the captain. To which he replied with, "Of course, but I must say all seems well. The perimeter system does prepare an exact report for you each day, both abridged in audio and elaborated on your computer." But regardless, the captain went on anyway and said, "Well, the inmates are behaving quite well today, and Scurvy is still in the sick bay in recovery from the raid." Now to that, the warden coldly said, "If he dies, then I want his brain preserved for proper post-mortem study." And then the captain stated, "A bit of a virus of some kind is going around. 5 guards called out yesterday and another 6 did today. Perimeter is scouring the hallways for signs of infection or bioabnormalities." Following that disclosure, one of the guards noticed something strange going on with Charles and immediately brought it up to the warden's attention and said, "I think Charles is crying." And the reason why Charles was crying was explained in his journal when he stated, "I can see it all. The language of the blade, the poetry of hate. Please, Deathbird, save her." So as the team at Graymalkin looked on, the captain asked Perimeter for an update and status report on Charles. To which Perimeter stated, "Tachycardia detected, heart rate 100 beats per minute. Respirations 26 breaths per minute and shallow with oxygen saturation of 88 and cardiac arrest is imminent." And on the last panel, as Charles cries out, the journal narration continues to say, "And then I scream a scream beyond language, I meditate, I have practiced introspection all my life. It is not a hobby, it is a life raft in an endless sea of chatter." Now this turn of events started to piss the warden off, and she shouted at the technician why Charles was dying, and all the technician could do is say what he could see, and that was he felt like his brain was overheating. Now following that, Charles slumped down in his seat as he witnessed Deathbird take a direct hit by one of the revolutionaries. So with Deathbird defeated, the soldiers prepared to enter the chamber just as Perimeter prepared to sedate Charles under the direct order of the warden. And right before Perimeter puts Charles to sleep, we witness the revolutionaries flood Charles's daughter, Xandra, the Empress of the Shi'ar's room, and put her under arrest as she calls out for her father to help. Following that situation, we then transition over to the Haven House with Rogue's X-Men team having a group meeting. And during this meeting, Wolverine points out that he is completely aware that the Outliers had to grow up a little too fast, so he thought it would be best to teach them how to defend themselves, especially because of the events that took place at the mall in the last issue. With this conversation playing out, Rogue narrated, "There's a little bitty thing about the danger room that we don't really talk about. Not in front of the kids. Anyways, it's that the younger the generation, the more they think of this as fun, like a sport, like a video game. With that narration out there, Gambit told Rogue that everything was going to be okay because Wolverine wouldn't allow the kids to get hurt. But see, that was the problem, because Rogue wanted the kids to have real consequences, because by not allowing them to get hurt, the kids would only see it as a game, as she stated in her narration. And just to push the optics that it is a game, Jubilee walked before the outliers and said, "The point of the game is simple. You go in the semicircle and you stay on your feet for 3 minutes." This was followed up by Wolverine saying, "Every inch is fair game, but leave the semicircle and you're done." So with the challenge on, Rogue continued her narration by saying, "Even Wolverine being so cussed gruff just makes it seem more like playtime. Did we go and forget why this place exists?" So as the X-Men lightly knocked the outliers out of the semicircle, Rogue just watched in disappointment and narrated how this was all wrong, and stated forgive me because what she was about to do was going to be tough. Because Rogue went on to tell Gambit to take one of the kids down, and it didn't matter which one, all that mattered was that he took them down hard. And with a flick of his wrist, Gambit tossed a card, and for a brief moment, Rogue didn't like them both, but it had to be done, and on the next page, an explosion went off that tossed Jitter several feet back. As reality set in, Jubilee stormed her way over to Rogue and Gambit and asked what was they both thinking of, because according to Jubilee, Jitter could have been hurt badly. But to Rogue's credit, she stated, "I was thinking of Sentinels, Master Mold, Mr. Sinister, Omega Red, Sabretooth, and Sarah Gaunt." So as the kids walked away with Kurt and Jubilee, Rogue started to realize and understand Cyclops a little more. And as for Wolverine, he too understood where Rogue was coming from, he just wished that it wasn't needed. Following that, as Rogue and Gambit shared a kiss, her phone started to ring, and to her surprise, it was Graymalkin on the other end. And just as Rogue picked up, the warden said, "We need your team here immediately." With the call out, on the next page, we pick up at the guard's home 4 miles away from the prison. And when we get there, we see the guard completely going through it, and outside of his door, we see his wife just worried about him, asking if he was okay and how he should come down for dinner. And then the wife stated that she got a call from his supervisor saying to take all the sick days he needs to recover. And in a pool of sweat, the guard sat up and told his wife that he was okay and she should go down to the kitchen table and he'd be there shortly. And on the next page, the dad walked downstairs and saw his entire family as Sentinels and loaded his weapon and did the unthinkable. Following that tragic event, on the next page, we pick back up in the prison with Charles calling out to Sarah asking if she could hear him. To which she confirmed that she could, and following that, Charles went on to say, "They've drugged me, and I can't think properly. I know you can help me, I need to get out." Now this prompted Sarah to ask, "And why would I help you, Charles?" To this Charles gets really vulnerable and states, it's his daughter Sarah. Now this was all he needed to say, cause Sarah is all about family. And after a burst of energy, Charles was set free as Sarah said, "I still hate you, by maybe even more now. Save your daughter, Charles." With Charles free from his restraints, he stumbled to the door and said, "I can feel your presence outside the door. You've come to me, my X-Men." But when he sees Rogue's team, from his perspective they are dressed as his classic team. And once he was free, Charles was going through it. He truly thought that this was his original team and he was shocked that he was standing. And during their interaction, Rogue approached him and said, "Charles, please listen, you have a tumor at the base of your skull, and it's not a normal tumor." And then Rogue went on to say, "It's a mutant, and it's eating at your telepathic control." To this, Charles whispered lies and threw Rogue into the wall and shouted, "Where are my real X-Men, not traitorous weaklings?" Now this act of violence was all Rogue needed to happen to believe what the warden said was true. Because previously, the warden said, it's in his brainstem, diffuse intrinsic pontine gunma, very rare in adults. Our high-level telepath has it too. He can't be let loose and the diagnosis is terminal. So with his death all but certain, on the next page we see Wolverine jump into action, just to be knocked away into Gambit. So with the two men pushed back, Jubilee hopped in and blindsided Charles with her attack. But see, the X-Men were fighting to restrain, not kill, so Charles quickly returned to his feet and was met by Kurt teleporting in his face. But even the Blue Devil was too slow, for Charles hit them all with a massive psi attack. And as they all suffered the impact, Rogue narrated, "We aren't doing too good here, every blasted one of us owes this man our lives. How do you fight the only father some of us ever knew? I fought to free this man. Now I'm fighting to keep him in jail, and losing if I'm being honest." And once the psi attack died down, the team lay defeated with the exception of Kurt. And as Charles walked away he stated, "It doesn't matter, all that matters now is that I rescue my daughter, Xandra." And with that said, the X-Manhunt events started with the end of Uncanny X-Men issue 11. But anyway, down in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.